Thank you. We'll turn to Dr. Kwiatkowski for CEO comments.
Well, I first wanted to share that we have written a statement from Muncie Community Schools, and rather than me trying to summarize, I'm just going to go and read the entire statement that we put out. Dear students, families, and friends, in light of yet another senseless killing of an unarmed Black man at the hands of the police, we at Muncie Community Schools want to reaffirm our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is no justification for anything less. Racism and racist violence by action or inaction is intolerable and unacceptable. The Black Lives Matter movement must include all of us as we support our Black and brown students, teachers, staff, and families. It is not a Black problem, but a global problem. Black lives matter, and we must show this fact in our everyday actions moving forward. We are committed to dismantling racism in our schools and acknowledge some practices that are unacceptable, including an inadequate representation of our Black and brown educators, disproportionate discipline, and Eurocentric curriculum. Here are ways Muncie Community Schools will address diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last year, we established a cultural competency committee and it's made up of a diverse group of individuals to make sure we are doing all we can to provide a welcoming, inclusive environment for students, families, and staff. Based on recommendations from this committee, we are asking the board to appoint Rhonda Ward as our new Director of Diversity. She will also continue in her current role as Assistant Principal at the high school. Rhonda is well respected throughout the community and through Muncie Community Schools. Additionally, the committee created a plan for cultural diversity training, including implicit bias, which will begin this summer. Before every staff meeting, there will be time to read, reflect, listen, and have honest conversations regarding issues of racial justice. With input from Ball State University, Muncie Community Schools, community members, and experts across the state and nation, we have written an innovation plan along with a more detailed strategic plan that is due to our legislators June 30th. This plan consists of 5 pillars and 2 foundational principles. One of the foundational principles is culturally relevant teaching and learning, and will be embedded in all that we do, such as curriculum, professional development, social emotional learning, and family and community involvement. We are committed to prioritizing the recruitment and retention of teachers of color. We will require implicit bias training for our Muncie Community Schools school resource officers this summer. This kind of proactive approach with our frontline workers responsible for the safety and well-being of everyone inside our school is just one more way we can provide the best educational environment for every student. We will also require this training for our bus drivers and front office staff. We will review our curriculum to ensure there's relevant material and that classrooms have a variety of texts that include positive, diverse representations. We are committed to improving communication with our communities of color through multiple channels. We will continue to work to eliminate racist and punitive practices and policies. We have begun the groundwork through our Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports Initiative, PBIS, that began several years ago, and most recently with the revamping of our 2020-21 Student Discipline Handbook. We plan to incorporate restorative practices in our schools. We are strengthening our multi-tiered system of support teams in each school to proactively address student behavior so issues do not reach the level of in-school or out-of-school suspension. We will dismantle bias practices put into place in order to provide Black students equitable access to gifted and talented programs, advanced placement courses, and dual credit opportunities. We will ensure that minorities will be included, considered, and/or represented when it comes to identifying a panel of judges within the schools. Our Director of Diversity will assist in these areas. as a side note, I've had questions about that, and that is regarding often competitions such as cheerleading. We would make sure that we have judges on panels. It is what MCS does in the days, weeks, and years ahead that will ultimately make a difference in the dismantling of anti-Black racism that occurs within MCS and beyond. We are committed to a sustained effort to create change where there will truly be equity and justice for all. And what I would like to say is I am committed to and have for my entire career been committed to equity, and I will continue making sure that the actions that we've listed, you will see us make progress. That is definitely my promise.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Keck?
I do have a couple other
Sure.
updates then, unless you have some other questions. Next, I have received some questions regarding, they're called Pandemic Electric Benefit Transfer Program, the EBT cards that some people may be receiving in the mail. This is another, through the CARES Act, through the FSSA, any family that lives in Muncie Community Schools, we are on universal feeding programs. So it says that if a child qualifies for free or reduced lunches, you get a card for about $325 per student. But because all of our students qualify, since we're universal, every family will receive one card per child. And so many families are starting to receive these, and they aren't understanding what they're for. But it's a way of helping with the times when we weren't in session. Even though we passed out meals, we know it was an extra hardship for families, and the federal government through the CARES Act has provided these cards. We also have a Reopening Schools Task Force that has been meeting. The Department of Ed, Department of Health, FSSA released guidance this past week. We're in regular meetings with the Delaware County Department of Health. And what I can say is we will be back in session on August 11th. Make sure I have that date right. August 11th is our first day back. Right now, we are planning, unless something would change in the future, we are planning on being in school 5 days per week. You may hear that different people have hybrid approaches, but we are certainly planning for 5 days to be in school. But we also know we have some families that are either hesitant to send students back, or we may have some medically fragile students. And for those, any of the folks that are interested, we will also have a virtual option. So we will offer both a traditional and an e-learning option for families to make selections. And then finally, the athletic plan has to be heard by the board, and also the Board of Health has to approve it, because we know that our athletics will begin after July 6th. We want to make sure that at the next board meeting, you will be hearing our athletic plan to be able to, for us to move forward in July.
So on the EBT cards that have been sent out, those have gone directly to the families?
Yes.
So since we're a universal district, or I guess I'm a little confused as to, do we need to communicate with those families?
The families have received a letter, but many of the families who received the letter, because it says you qualify for free or reduced lunch, and then they're confused because they think, well, maybe I really don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, and why am I receiving this card? And so I just wanted to let all families know that in Muncie Community Schools, if your child attended Muncie Community Schools, you will receive this card and you're entitled to it.
And then what, so that's a debit card with $300 and some odd
Per child. So if you have multiple children, it would be more than that.
So are they then going to give the debit card to the school? Or
No, this is all just, it's for them to purchase food and supplies for their families.
Oh, so they can purchase it
Yes.
in other places?
Yes,
Doesn't
yes.
have to be used here?
Oh, it's not going to be used here.
Okay, now I understand. Any additional questions?
Thank you for all that you've done with the movement out here, with all the recent events that have happened across the community, you've been present, and just want to say thank you for
Yes,
being who you are.
absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
In terms of the online virtual option, is there anything that, I know we've talked about finding some funding for Schoology. Is there anything we as a board need to do to help you get ready for that?
No, I believe we are just working on what that curriculum will look like, and I know Tony is working to get a way to go from our enrollment page, so if families want to make that selection, that would be easy for them to do. We're making progress, and early July, we'll be able to share more of the details of our educational plans with you.
Can I make a suggestion that we have Andy perhaps work with Wolf Bloom and local public radio in terms of maybe similar to what we've done in prior years regarding public service announcements concerning plans for reopening and the options that will be available to our families.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we've touched base with Seth recently on that, but I think we could maybe get in front of that. If we get the statement regarding, also want to take a moment and recognize James Leslie, who's retiring after 25 years of service with the district at the Adventure Environmental Learning Center. So, and it does look like, in terms of what we talked about, Diane, earlier, that things are proceeding pretty well. Is there any place where we're behind, or are we out front on everything?
We are really out in front. The principals have done a fantastic job of recruiting from home. They've kept things up. They've given us a weekly interview sheet, so we know exactly who they're interviewing and what we can do and where we can help them. And so we have 8 vacancies. I have 2 recommendations of those 8 on my desk right now. So after Dr. K reviews them, we'll probably be down to about 6 that we need to fill, and that is fantastic with it being, in June, early June.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when we as a board first came together in July of 18. Wasn't there like 27?
Yes, there were. Very good memory.
Okay.
So I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I feel like Rhonda.
Awesome. I don't know what last name I'm going to give you tonight. Any additional questions, concerns, comments for items A through H? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Financial report.
Yes, thank you. In front of your, included in your board packet was the monthly financial statements for the month of May. And I just always like to give you a monthly update of where we're at. Obviously, it's not the end of the calendar year, but we're certainly coming up on the end of the fiscal month of June. I always like to report we did receive our state basic grant of $3.2 million in the month of May. We're still receiving our normal state basic grant. It's not been reduced or anything based on the pandemic or any cuts at the state level. So we're still receiving what we expected to receive. Obviously, with the state receiving less money each of the last 3 months, those numbers might change, but that would be in the next, perhaps the latter part of this calendar year. They have not reported anything yet to us. So in terms of cash balance, we still have almost $24 million, $23.8 million at the end of the month of May. That's still on target. I'm positive, or very happy to report we received from the local property taxes an early tax draw of $2.8 million. So we did receive some money there in May. We'll get some more tax money by the end of this month in June. It's still yet to be seen how much we'll actually receive on these first 2 installments of May and June. Last year, we received almost $5.7 million of local property taxes by the end of June. So we'll see if that makes a difference, because the state extended the deadlines with no penalties on paying local property taxes. Still planning on, if things go right, if things go well, still planning on being in a surplus position in the education fund by the end of this calendar year, and also still able to, still planning on trying to set aside another $2 million in our rainy day fund for 2020. And I just give you that little note there at the bottom under number 5 on other items, that local property taxes, still expecting to probably receive over $10 million. Last year, we received about 54% of the local levy, and we don't know that for sure until we get to the end of December of this calendar year. Some of the other items I always include are just the monthly, some of the monthly charts and graphs in terms of our cash balance and our appropriation spending. We have not spent over our budget. That becomes very important when you get to the end of the fourth quarter, but I won't comment specifically on any individual page or some of those other items unless you had a question. We're just preparing for the June fiscal closing, where we do you'll have a budget presentation for you for the new upcoming budget in like August 11th is the meeting date, and we'll go right into the accrual accounting audit with the Ball State auditors and state work accounts auditors. Probably they'll come in the first part of August, so we start getting a little bit more busy in the business office at that time. So other than that, that's pretty much the extent of my financial report for you tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Durant? I'd just like to say thank you. He's been working very hard with Baker Tilly on getting 5-year projections put together on the financial plan, or part of the materials that need to be submitted by the end of the month. And I think we're getting pretty close. And we are discussed it a little bit today, and Brad is comfortable with where things are. There's going to have to be some things that the board will have to address, certainly in 2022-23 as we look at that period of time. It looks like Baker Tilly has some suggestions for us. Brad's really done a great job of addressing an area that's extraordinarily complex and also uncertain right now, given the state's revenue issues. So thank you for all the work you've been doing. And, if there are no additional questions, would entertain a motion? So second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Is Dr. Reynolds around?
We let Dr. Reynolds take a vacation this week.
Okay. Well, who's that on the video?
There.
No, the picture right there at the bottom. I can't see that part.
Back over there.
Yeah, no, I know see Darren, but who's on the screen?
Darren is there.
Oh, Darren. Okay. I'm gonna say 15 times, Darren.
Take your mask off.
Take the mask off.
Just for a minute, get a little oxygen back in there.
We can get you a tank or something.
That's right.
Okay, well, my glasses are not. Okay, Darren, I trust that that's you.
I can go ahead and do this.
Okay, thank you.
When the calendar committee met, our intention was to have elections not held in our schools. And with the unprecedented things that are happening in our country today, we have decided that for this year, we will continue hosting elections in our school. And then the next year, we will work to find different locations for those election sites. So with that, we would not want students to be in schools when elections were taking place, just for the safety concern. So we are asking that we change November 3rd to be an e-learning day.
And I can give a bit of background. There was some communications with the county before the pandemic regarding finding other locations. The pandemic came along, and we discussed it with Mr. Day, and Leanne and I talked, and just given the uncertainty of what election day looks like, it felt like we may not be being good neighbors by forcing the issue for this November. But we are going to, we are going to push to not have elections after this November in our school buildings.
Makes sense.
That's where we are.
Move approval.
Okay, second, been moved and seconded. Second, you get that? Okay, motion is fails, second is Fishman. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Dialogue of the board. Anybody have anything they wish to say?
I have a quick statement. Dr. K already reviewed some specific actionable items, and I'm so grateful for that action as far as Black Lives Matter. In addition, I'd like to share my personal thoughts on this. I'm speaking as a mother, educator, colleague, friend, and board member. I recognize the place of privilege on which I'm able to speak. The fact that I'm able to take my time and learn about racism instead of live it every day. The murder of George Floyd is simply the tip of the iceberg that has opened much of America's eyes to the systemic racism in this country. As a white woman, I realize I could never perfectly understand the fear and anger of my Black friends, our Black families, our Black faculty and staff, but I will most certainly always stand beside them. While no one condones violence, neither should anyone lose sight of the larger, deeper concerns about the institutional racism that has ignited this. I stand beside you. I empathize with you, with your anger and hurt and exhaustion. I see you, and I'm listening. I will continue to listen, learn, and take action as Dr. K has shared. I remain confident in wonderful faculty and staff at MCS to be there for our students, both for their minds and their hearts. Every child deserves a champion, and Black Lives Matter at MCS.
And I will say the same, I cannot be more prouder than to be a part of this school board and the board of trustees, and a part of the MCS district as a whole. I know that from the outside looking in, it may be difficult for some to understand, but knowing what we're doing, knowing what we stand for from the inside out, I stand committed with you, and I personally would not serve in a place that I did not feel was working for the equity of all. And so I just thank you all for your willingness, your openness, the honesty that we have, and I am just so appreciative of Muncie Community Schools and what we're doing and what we'll continue to do in this community.
Anything else? The media is not here this evening. So at this point, thank you for hosting us at our new space. It's wonderful. Have we done anything in terms of a thank you for Ivy Tech or Jeff? Just
Sending
No,
notes,
better.
but we probably should invite him and recognize him at one of our board meetings.
If nothing further, adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
This is an educational board. I'm glad that Brittany said what she said. She said she's a white woman.
Wow.
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 I never seen one.